also instrumented by colonials to do a coup to end our democracy. They do not like democracy. Democracy brings people who argue with them. They like what you call strong men rule. They tell the strong men what to do, the strong men do it for them, and then they create a symbiotic, I will maintain you in power, I will manipulate your people, and you will stay there, you will do what I want. So we are going through that transition, and that's where you now talk about Ibrahim Traore. You now have young people, whether you call it military or anything, from the words of President Goodluck you had, they use of, exacting force or coercive strategies to sustain advantage for whoever you call is, for me, it is still colonial. When they use those kind of things to coax people into keep umpire, in our case, INEC, or by having the colonials help them to manipulate themselves and stay in power, as you've seen in Paul Biya, as you're talking about now, in regards to President Tinubu going to France, working with Gilbert Chaguri. And that's also how he seems to have suggested the sharing of our oil wealth. He will give some to Gilbert Chaguri. He will give to another Indian company. He will then give to Oando. So this is the old fraudulent protocols which we must get away from. And we must fight to see that Tinubu is the last colonial stooge working against Nigeria's broader interests.
Hello everyone and welcome back. Dr. Katch just dropped another bombshell, which I would love you guys to watch this video to the end. So according to him, he said that we must fight to see that Tinubu is the last colonial stooge working against Nigeria's interests, that Ibrahim Traore is working with the Russia, that Nigerians should do the same thing. And the reason why Tinubu put fear in governors, why most of the governors are now decamping from PDP or any other party to APC, all this will be discussed in this particular video. But before we go into that, so that this particular breaking news that says Nigeria Naira has been ranked as the 9th weakest currency in Africa. Hey, my people, do you know that Ghana is the 4th in the strongest currency in Africa? And this Tinubu propaganda government is telling us that the reform is working and our economy is improving. Recently, Tinubu repeated it again that there is always light at the end of every tunnel. Like Nigerians are asking, we have waited for so long. When are we going to be seeing all this light beacon? Is it when Nigerians spy? Is it when Nigerians spy? The painful surgery is still going on. Funny how in 2027, Tinubu will now come back to continue the surgery. By then, Nigerians don't buy already. So I don't know how Tinubu wants to continue. So this is the reason why Dr. Katch said that Nigerians should do everything possible to make sure that Tinubu will not come back in 2027. My people, look at what is happening now. First time of Tinubu. Just think about it. How Tinubu is going to be treating Nigerians in 2027 after he come back. So this is the reason why everybody must work hard to make sure that Tinubu will go out from that Asoro come 2027. Let me allow you guys to listen to the whole discussion here, and also do well to subscribe for more updates. Please like the video so that YouTube will recommend it to other people to watch. Share it and also leave your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you so much for doing so.
As usual.
You are welcome. And of course, you just heard Goodluck Jonathan speak on some of these issues, and he talked about electoral manipulation across Africa, and of course why even the young people are maybe jumping at the offer in politics just because of the remuneration. But firstly, about electoral manipulation, is your thought on what Goodluck Jonathan said?
Well, he is very correct, and that manipulation starts from the way the British left our country. The manipulations were there right by the British. The British manipulated our elections, and then they left standards and protocols that were continued because they wanted a given a known minority to dominate. The way they did it, the three regions, they made sure one region had the opportunity to veto whatever the other two regions did, and that was the southwest, the western region and the eastern region. So they had people in the northern region at that time whom they thought could protect their British interests, and that was how the manipulations started. That manipulations have continued today because those who took over from the British wanted now to institute what I would call settler colonialism in Nigeria. We are now a democracy again, and because those people don't have numbers, they now think manipulation plus violence is the only way that they can continue to sustain their positions of entitlement in Nigeria. Nigeria's democracy has now matured to a reality where you have a lot of awareness amongst the young people, who seems to form 70% of the country's population, active population. And that's why you saw, as somebody said from the presidency last week, that Peter Obi saw that restiveness with the youth and he quickly seized it. The youth are where the story is. So, and if you have the youth, you have a machine that you definitely can use to disrupt the system. The youths are very important. And if you check sub-Saharan Africa, you check Nigeria, we have up to 90% of active players today between the ages of 18 and 36. Now that creates trouble for the old people who do not want to allow a new way. Another issue with these youths is that they have knowledge. The availability of the internet has brought awareness to everybody. So you are now dealing with a very different kind of Nigeria and a very different kind of Africa, where you now have the first generation of youths who became richer than their parents in their lifetime. So for me, it's a very interesting time in our country. And as far as I can see, nobody will be able to stop the momentum that the youth have already built. I think we have very, very interesting times going forward in today's sub-Saharan Africa.
All right, Dr. Ononiju, you've just dived into my question right there, how colonial legacies have actually affected leadership in Africa. Because, Dr. Ononiju, it seems as if our leaders, African leaders, a lot of them are still tied to the apron strings of the colonial masters. For instance, in Nigeria, our former president, General Muhammadu Buhari, he was always running to the UK. Now we have a president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whose destination is France. So why is it that some nations, African nations, are seemingly tied to the apron strings of colonial masters? And we have a young leader in Africa, Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, who would have none of it. Okay, and he's implementing massive reforms in his country, but that's a military ruler right there. I don't want to go into details of that. So in your own opinion, why do we keep producing strong individuals but weak institutions in Africa? And I'll use Cameroon as an example. Paul Biya has been there since 1982. Dr. Ononiju, what is the problem with Africa? Nigeria has had independence since 1960, but up till now, we are still struggling. So why do we have strong individuals? Why do we keep producing strong individuals but weak institutions in Africa?
Well, Africa is going through a transition, and that transition is a symbiotic transition. You will say, why colonial? For over 400 years, the Europeans who tried to whitewash our history after their conquest, after, if you allow me, all this started from their Berlin conferencing, their agreement to share Africa. Yes, and from the sharing of Africa, you had the colonial system. After the colonial system failed, you now had them still exacting strength and powers through a new colonial system where some of these old people, like you're talking about now, think that they need the strategic calculations and protocols established by the former colonial masters who, like, if you check Nigeria, who are they dealing with? Old people like Buhari. Buhari met the Archbishop who was previously in Nigeria working in the oil markets. And when he went back to the UK, he became an Archbishop. That didn't stop him from being an essential element of the stooges that work for the state. So he became a link for Buhari, whom he met when Buhari was also instrumented by colonials to do a coup to end our democracy. They do not like democracy. Democracy brings people who argue with them. They like what you call strong men rule. They tell the strong men what to do, the strong men do it for them, and then they create a symbiotic, I will maintain you in power, I will manipulate your people, and you will stay there, you will do what I want. So we are going through that transition, and that's where you now talk about Ibrahim Traore. You now have young people, whether you call it military or anything, from the words of President Goodluck you had, the use of, exacting force or coercive strategies to sustain advantage for whoever you call is, for me, it is still colonial. When they use those kind of things to coax people into keep umpire, in our case, INEC, or by having the colonials help them to manipulate themselves and stay in power, as you've seen in Paul Biya, as you're talking about now, in regards to President Tinubu going to France, working with Gilbert Chaguri. And that's also how he seems to have suggested the sharing of our oil wealth. He will give some to Gilbert Chaguri. He will give to another Indian company. He will then give to Oando. So this is the old fraudulent protocols which we must get away from. And we must fight to see that Tinubu is the last colonial stooge working against Nigeria's broader interests. You see it in Paul Biya's Cameroon. You see it in other African countries where, yes, the colonials have left, but they've continued their machinations that now suggest neo-colonial manipulations. So we have to get away from that. And that's why I said earlier to some people, the Russians were never part of those who colonized Africa. Let us try them. And you can see Traore is trying to work with the Russians. That secures him security-wise. And then Traore does what he can do. So I think Nigeria should do the same thing. Nigeria is now thinking about selling part of its sovereign wealth. It's a production sharing, percentages to who? You don't need to sell such things. That is wealth
sorry, Dr.
for you.
Noniju.
That's your money.
Dr. Noniju.
It's like stealing.
Yeah, sorry to cut
Yes.
in. I just want you to make something clear. You said Ibrahim Traore is working with Russia. And you also said you think Nigeria should do the same thing. Are you talking about alliances with other nations? Is it economic alliances? What exactly do you mean? I just want you to make that clear.
What Russia provides to Traore is military security. You're seeing what's going on in South America. The US is preparing to go in there. Suddenly, China and Russia are in, telling you can't just get into South America again. So that means if we're going to join BRICS well. Don't be BRICS for attendance sake. No. Join BRICS and join BRICS well. Now, Africa should not lose this opportunity at using Russian security guarantees to stabilize their place and then take back their economies, their resources, You can see Nigeria is already beginning to do that, with Dangote coming in very strong, trying to now refine natural resources at home. Can you imagine if Dangote's refining of our local resources, but don't forget, it was that particular resource, our hydrocarbons, that was the reason for the Civil War. It's not all the stories that they tell, the British say this, the Fulani say that. These people don't mean well for us. It was the hydrocarbons that caused.
All right, I'm afraid you have been...
local refining of that hydrocarbon, we will go a long way if others join Dangote to locally refine our raw materials.
All right.
Africa's leadership problems is rooted in corruption and lack of accountability.
All of it is rooted in state capture. You see, what Mogaji is trying to explain are the protocols and the nuances that are consequences of state capture. And right now, you're likely to see more of it. Why do I say there is now a tectonic struggle between those who wish to transition from the old colonial system to a new Africa, and with the West openly saying that they will not allow that. You had the French, that no matter what maneuvers you try to present, we believe we own you and we should own you. Some of these people do this because they seek resources. They don't have what we have. We are rich. If we decide to keep our resources and then try to refine our resources, we will be one of the very richest continents in the world. So it is the struggle to control those resources that brings about the state capture. It is the state capture that you've had Mogaji now try to explain some of his protocols and the factors that allow state capture to be perpetuated. As I was saying before, we have reached a point of knowledge, of awareness, and you are asking me, what are the things that people could do to be able to secure that transition? That's what I was going to say. For you to secure this transition, of course, you know the West, the Europeans, whom we've dealt for 400 years with, all we've gotten from them for 400 years is slavery, colonialism, and current neocolonialism. And most of that neocolonialism is premised on their need to maintain control of our resources. So if you continue to see the electoral protocols being abused, it's simply done with people in country, with some agreed participants outside the country. In Nigeria, as you rightly talked about Tinubu, we now know who his foreign partners are in his strategy of perpetuating himself in Nigeria. Tinubu does what he does that frightens governors. It's not because of he is popular. No, he wants to capture the country. So he will tell you, if you want to work with me, good. If you don't want to work with me, look at Edo State. I will repeat Edo State in your state. And that puts fear in the first-term governor. And then what you see, somebody can come, like somebody came on your station last week and say, nah, we did it for tribe. Not true. Nobody knows Shun did anything for tribe. They're just playing their game, watching him. Yeah. Oyetola and Tinubu might think, I want to capture it, so we'll perpetuate ourselves. First, you destroy INEC. And the governor knows very well they could destroy INEC and bring the destroyed INEC to come there and seize the state. So he's playing politely. No, he's not doing that gently. He's not being that happy. You saw the man you were talking to that last week. He wasn't comfortable in trying to say a lot of things. And I tried to say them for him. He laughed and said, yes, that is state capture. Those are the consequences of state capture. And that's what our present leadership in Nigeria are doing. So part of that strategies of state capture is grip the coercive instruments that you need to perpetuate yourself electorally. The election done by INEC are no more done by an independent electoral body. No, it is now done by a body that is owned by the political party in power. And that political party will now listen to suggestions from its members on how to further do a total grab of the electoral system. And that's why you're seeing
if I may what
we are seeing today in our country.
If I need to just cut in now, because you raised a very important concern there. And using your word, you said, talking about state capture, because this one is about electoral manipulation, the conversation held in Accra by Goodluck Jonathan, and you're talking about the system right now, and the umpire, your word, you said they destroyed INEC to do whatever they want to do. Are you saying the current Independent National Electoral Commission under Professor Yakubu is a destroyed one, captured by the party in power to do their bidding anywhere? Is that what you're saying this morning?
That is exactly the truth. And Yakubu showed that in 2023. He was conducting an election, and we got head-up information from military formations that a particular candidate has won in all military formations where elections were free and fair. The state didn't like it. What did they do? They switched off the server that was collating the elections. And when we said why, they said that's a glitch. Then we now spoke to the American owners of the service that provides the server, and they said, no, we don't have a problem with our servers. So what was it? The politicians in power, they have not liked what they have seen with the exit polls, and that has now forced them to switch off the election server so that they can now start writing manually what they want. And after they wrote it, what did they do? According to Tinubu, they refused to give it to him in trust. According to him, he now bought presidency from them. That's why this crisis persists in the ruling APC party.
All right.
When they come to him, he will tell them...
Dr. Katch, the INEC said at the time that the server, or, the ARF now, the server was not supposed to be one of the, instruments used in collation. It's supposed not to be it's just for transparency, for people to see what is going on. It's not a collation device. It's not recognized by the law. That's what INEC said. It's just for transparency for everybody.
You have mentioned it there. You have mentioned it there.
In real time.
You see what you just said? Listen to yourself.
Yeah.
It is just for the transparency.
Yeah.
You just said it now, that it is just for the transparency.
Yeah, for everybody to
so
follow
that people
in
can
real
see
time.
the truth.
It's not captured by the law.
And then when they now want to switch off the transparency, they switched off the server so that it is no more transparent. Elections are free and fair when they are transparent. So it is for transparency. They no more want transparency. They switched it off. Why switch it off? Why switch it off? Why switch it off? To acrobatically now deliver your handwritten things that are not real. These things are supposed to corroborate each other. You do the hand gathering, but you also leave that transparent server that collates information which is fed to it from different points of action.
All right, Doctor.
All right, Dr. Result.
All right, Dr. Nju, I will come back to you. Very quickly, let's have Mogaji. Mogaji Adejumo, you're a historian. My question to you is this. Why are we always having contentious transition of power in Africa? Why is transition of power and often contentious in Africa? Apart from a few examples like Nelson Mandela, who set a golden example, and a few other leaders, why are we always having contentious transition of power in Africa? What do you think is the root cause of this?
Well, what is responsible mainly for these problems in Africa is because of the way the African had been within his own cocoon, in his own community, perhaps ethnicity. And then you now have those who have bigger interests, not in the way you ought to be, not in your heterogeneous situation, but in his own idea of how to capture all your resources, because he wants to influence what even is going to go on after he might have left. Surreptitiously, they say they are giving us independence. But we are never independent. We are tied to their economic realities. They are the ones who exploit our natural resources. So they lump us together. And that's exactly what happened in Ghana. You have the Fanti, you have the AV, that we call AW. We have the Ga, you still have the Hausa. It is always going to be like that. We are the Yoruba. The Yoruba are even in Gambia, some are in Sierra Leone, some are mainly in Nigeria. But you still find them in Togo, you have them in Ghana, you have them in Benin Republic. But it didn't matter to the British. What matters is, well, how do we exploit the resources of the Western region, of the Eastern region, and of the Northern region? It's about the fact that there was an amalgamation, as in the case of Nigeria in 1914. The papers are there. I can even supply your station to see that the Northern Protectorate was not viable. It was not viable. They were almost going to even drop it. But then they now found a Southern Directorate that has a lot of armor in the Opobo area in Southeast as well as the Southwest, and then coal in the East, and then cocoa, groundnut, and all of that in the Southwest, and a lot of the occurrence of other natural resources that were just coming into the world global stage in the South. And they say, okay, let's just merge this very productive South with a very, very productive North, so that we can have a balance. They were not even going to use their own resources to run the North. So all that is important to the colonial masters is about their own interests, not our own interests. So you just approach people who have lived all their lives through certain tenets, certain belief system, certain religious system, certain social political systems, and you just lump them together with others who don't share that. How can you share the Southwest that believes so much in the monarchical system with the Igbo Republicans, and then you now bring in the feudal North and expect that there will be a semblance of a very successful nation? The only thing you can do is to look at how best to help some certain elements that perhaps going to be important to how things begin to evolve, and see how they can fit into a system that you are bringing anew, but at the same time you allow them to develop the system by themselves, never having to push one against the other. So
all right,
what did they do? They did divide and rule. They did divide and rule. They will pacify some people for some people. They were never equitable. So if you have somebody who is an umpire, but then the umpire is biased, then what do you think will be the outcome of such an exercise? And that is...
All right, Mogaji, because of time, sorry to cut in, Mogaji.
All over Africa.
Yeah, sorry to cut in. Because of time, I want us to look at the bigger picture right now. I talked about contentious transition of power in Africa. Before you came on, I was talking about Paul Biya in Cameroon, who's been there since 1982. We had Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe. We have Paul Kagame in Rwanda. So the question is, why are we having it? I mean, why is it so difficult for us as Africans to have smooth transition of power? Why are people clinging to power? Why are leaders clinging to power in Africa? And again, I said, let's look at the big picture right now. If you take a case like Libya, for instance, Mogaji, look at Libya. Libya had Gaddafi, and they were doing just fine. They were doing very fine. So do you think, Mogaji, that if Nigeria, for instance, should have a leader that will make the economy better, is it really about the leaders staying so long in power, or what they actually do when they are in power? Taking Libya as a case study.
Again, sorry, you got it wrong in certain areas of your analysis. There is nothing about a benevolent leader that we should think is a model for anyone.
No, I just wanted us to expand the perspective. Yes, I just wanted to look at different scenarios.
Please. Well, we don't have the time, so maybe you should just allow me to say something. What you have in a place like Gaddafi, when he was doing what he was doing, was Gaddafi's and a very large portion of land and 3 million people. And even in that same system, you found someone who would look at it and say, if I have 10 of such accruing to me, dollars, whatever it is, then let me give the people 6, let me keep 4. And then you see the 6 and the manipulations that go with it. And it is still part of what we are saying that is wrong. A leader should be a servant. And I want to say that we had it in some ways, the accountability system in the Southwest. They never had it in the North. The feudal system placed family power in the hands of the feudal North. When Chief Awolowo was at the London conference, he said something that shook everybody. He said, here is Tafawa Balewa. But then is he the leader? You made him prime minister in 1957. But is he the leader? The leader is the man who made him prime minister. And that man, Ahmadu Bello, has a private prison where he flogs people in his own house. It was a bombshell of a revelation. And Ahmadu Bello was quick to want to deny. But Awolowo had his proofs. He brought certain people from the middle belt to come and corroborate what he's saying. So, but has that changed in the North? Today, you still have the Amajiri system that is inimical to any kind of growth in the North. These are the same people they feed into Boko Haram, into all the terror groups. But you are asking, how do you solve the terror? How do you solve the terror without solving the feudal system that is still being allowed? We have a Buba Galadima who said last week that, the president wants to change the chairman of INEC. He's not talking about the electoral system. No. He's not talking about all that goes on with having to steal ballot papers and all that. Just like my brother Katch said, he's not talking about state capture. He's talking about the fact that the president wants to change the INEC chair from Yakubu. He wants to pick a former justice. Now people started speculating. Is it Justice Ayola? Is it Justice Liman? And they are taking us away from the main problem, which is the electoral system. It's not about persons, but we keep talking about people. We keep bringing in what we call strong men. There's nothing about being strong. It's about these institutions and systems that should dictate who we are. Well, what does it matter who the electoral chairman, the chair of the electoral body is? It's about what is supposed to be there that the man is supposed to follow. But when it is about, this is the man that will do my bidding, then we'll come back to your question, which is why did they do it? Power. Why did they do it? A whole lot of what will accrue to you. Now we have a problem. We have a wiki in Abuja that has been accused of having to give land to his son. He came to television and said, should I give the land to my enemy? And it's still there. That is what a minister says, and it's still there. And that makes Nigeria a pathetic situation. Now he's been accused of his children, his wife having houses in Florida, and houses that are worth $2 million. Just translate that to Naira. Houses.
All right. I just want you to understand the context of that question. The sit-tight syndrome plaguing African leaders who want to perpetuate themselves in power, want to always clinging to power and never leaving. How has it affected Africans? I gave an example of Paul Biya in Cameroon, who's been there since 1982. He's still seeking re-election, but he's not doing it alone. Some people, now here's my point, Dr. Nju, some people are actually supporting him. That's the point. So how has it affected leadership in Africa? That's why I mentioned the case of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, who was there for quite a long time. A lot of Libyans believe he was doing well for them. So I just want you to look at this. How has it affected leadership in Africa when we have people who have stayed in power for so long, and some people actually believe that they are the best leaders for them?
Because those people are there as proxies. They are there as proxies for those people you say that those people are best for them. Some who is Bobia best for? Bobia is so bad that his daughter is now speaking out openly against keeping a dead man there, and then it's the same problem as in Nigeria. You have a man of 80 years like Atiku, he wants to become president. When you're president, the next 8 days, a cabal will form around you. The cabal will not take charge of state. The man who you think you voted to will never be in charge of governing the state. It happened under Buhari. It is happening also now, as you can see. And Atiku wants to come and repeat the same thing. And that's why we said, no. We did not form the youth movement for us to make an 80-year-old Bobia president of Nigeria. That's why we said, no, please, sit down. I respect the presidential pendulum that swings between the South and the North. And that's why we said it will never happen. And I called Peter Obi. I said, if you're going to work with this man, you will not have my support. Me and the obedient movement, which I'm a founding leader of, will not support you. And he told them back, it won't work. I said, yes, it will not work. Not for this man. If not for this particular man now, this old man, you will be president. If this man had respected the presidential pendulum that was in the north with President Buhari for 8 years, to have now swung back to the south, today you will have been president. So we have this ability to tell this truth to these people who think nobody talks to them. Who are you? In my country, a man who became president Nigeria in 1961 and was so included that he rose to become VP. Now you don't want to include all the indigenous Africans to also have a say in the governance system, this British contraption known as Nigeria. I don't agree with such things. So we will continue to fight to create an inclusive society where our diversity are part of the governance of our country.
So what do you say, Dr. Nonju? So what do you say?
Old people.
Yeah, Dr. Nonju. So what do you say to those people who are in support of these old men, according to you, to remain in power? Citizens of nations
They
who actually support them.
Yes, they are in support because they want to use the old men as proxies. Both the people in Nigeria, like in here in Nigeria, who do you think is the #1 person pushing Atiku? It's General Ali Gusau. It's him. He wants to use Atiku as a proxy. That Buhari, when Babangida was president, Abacha was president, that him, Gusau wasn't. So he will want to use Atiku. Atiku will be there and be working for him. Same thing. You want proxies. Allow the people to take over their country, and that's what we're driving. We want a system where people will come in and then take charge of their country. And that's what the young people want. So I think it's a long time we stopped all these pretensions and try to, put a country that is available to the needs of our young people.
All right,
and
Doctor.
that's what I'm working for.
Right.
Okay?
Right. I'll come back to you because I have a question for you. But firstly, let me go to Mogaji Adejumo. Now, there are persons who will say, is it not quite ridiculous, to put it mildly?
You know what? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
There are many persons, watchers, young people who will say, how long shall we blame the colonial masters, the British of this world, the Americans of this world, the Northern Protectorate, the Southern Protectorate thing, the amalgamation happened in 1914, more than a century ago. The independence was given at 1960, 65 years after. Yet in 2025, we seems to still be blaming them that they are still, what they did was bad, and they are still in charge in a kind of way. Now that we're talking about proxies, yeah, all those things have been done. 65 years after, are you saying we can't organize a simple election? Oh no, are you saying a 65-year-old man cannot administer his own home and we still blame his parents and grandparents for whatever is going on right now, 65 years after? This is where we are right now. Should we not move on and talk to ourselves? The amalgamation has happened. We can't retrieve that. Independence has been given 65 years after. Can't we just handle our business? And that's the question I have for you before I go to Dr.
Well, I will go back to what some of us have advocated, and that is the abdication of the ruling class and to allow the youths to move forward. The ruling class, they are very, very stubborn. They are very selfish. And you've seen the image of the hippopotamus. It's always in the water. It is lazy. It is not working for any food. It opens its mouth and something comes in. But then rather than close the mouth remains open because it is insatiable. Our political leaders, our educated elites, our ruling class are insatiable. They don't ever want to leave the seat. And the youth, too, are being used as, well, tools, electoral tools, thugs. When you go to the polling booth and you see those who come to disrupt, they are not those who sit down as counts in their homes and drinking and eating and slapping hands. No, it is the youth they use. They give them a little money to go and cause disruption. They kill, they snatch ballot boxes. So the truth of the matter is that the youths have got to wake up. But it's not going to happen that way because the youths have been led differently. The youths have been indoctrinated differently. The youths have been conditioned differently. So I will still go back to the fact that we are not the same. We are unequally yoked. We come from different backgrounds. We have those who will forever bow to the feudal lords, and it is whatever they say that is law. But we have those that have been born with expression, and they will ask, why are we doing what we are doing? But how many of them can survive? We have this particular problem of a combustion of Unigbo, Unenigba, those who will not allow you, who will not want to allow you to do and perpetuate evil. And those who will say, oh, this is the system, the only one that we know. And in the mix, they will bring religion, they will bring tribalism, they will bring ethnicity. So in that combustion, what do you expect? You cannot have a meaningful country and a way of aggregating all our views to make something out of it, even if it is 200 years, unless and except we do something. And that is where I will go back to Chief Obafemi Awolowo. When he said in 1947 that Nigeria is not a nation, it's just a geographical expression. We only have to look at the words of this sage and scribe, who has written all the books, who has laid it out to say that the only thing that can work when you have all of the different kind of people brought together is to go for federalism, true federalism. What we have in Nigeria today is a unitary system, it's not a federal system. Have the people to determine by themselves how they want to be governed. Let's have that regionalism back the way we used to have it, such that there can be those who want to say, this is how we want to govern our lives, this is how we know best. And then we can hold them to accountability. That's what we know how best to do in the Southwest. A king that doesn't do the right thing, please, you always come into when it is critical. Why?
I'm sorry.
Let's have this delivery so that people can know.
We are sorry. It's because of the exigency of time.
You see,
but let me give you 1 minute to just make your point.
Fundamentals must apply. If you don't allow the fundamentals to apply, then we'll come in here every time and you will cut us off, and then you will come back again.
We are never cutting you off. We will never do that.
We must go back to that fundamentals. We may have lost it in 1967. Not so much because it is not the right thing, but because we were not true to it. And I think we have learned some things today about how it is that heterogeneous groups can hold on to themselves and hold on to accountability. If we do not go back to that, then of course we will continue to be in this rut, in this quagmire, and in this tech pool of failure.
All right, Magaji, trust us, we love speaking with you, and that is why we have to continue that conversation. You know, we had it last week, and we have to bring you gentlemen. We appreciate your thought, but because of the time, we are the home stretch right now, less than 5 minutes to go. I'll go to Dr. Katch Ononuju. Now, Goodluck Jonathan talked about electoral manipulation, but there is another manipulation, Doctor. It's a constitutional manipulation. And I'll give you 2 examples quickly. Paul Kagame, that many persons are even celebrating now, came in as a military leader, as a dictator, you know, changed the status quo. In talking about Paul Kagame, the clear timeline, as at 2003, the original rule, the constitution was set at a 2-term limit, with each presidential term lasting 7 years. Under that rule, Kagame, who officially became president in 2000, after the genocide era transition, should have stepped down after the 2017 election. But in 2015, there was a referendum and the constitutional amendment was put to nationwide referendum. The changes allowed Kagame to run for a 3rd time in 2017, shorting future times from 7 to 5 years, but only after 2024. Now,
okay, you're back.
Please hold on, sir. Hold on, sir. Let me
do interview here because.
All right. Oloye, please. We are on to Dr. Katch now. I'm sorry. Now, the amendment reset the time count, enabling Kagame to run for 2 additional 5-year terms, 2024 to 2029 and 2029 to 2034 after his 3rd time bid. I'm talking about constitutional manipulation. The same thing for Yoweri Museveni in Uganda. He has been there since 1986. And African leaders, they will serve the normal time and then they tinker with the constitution to perpetuate themselves in power. We are talking about Paul Biya. Yoweri Museveni has just announced that he wants to run for election for the final term. So it's not just the electoral thing. There is a constitutional manipulation that officialized some of these things. Who has bewitched Africa, Dr. Katch Ononuju? Do we still blame colonial masters for that?
Yes.
Why?
Colonial masters are the ones who laid this platform, who allows the protocol. Who is the Museveni working with? With colonial masters. It's not changed. So for me, you need internal disagreements by the people, internal revolts for the people to understand. Nobody's going to go to, you know, Uganda or Rwanda to go sort it for them. It's their own job to do. As me and you are fighting in Nigeria to have an inclusive society and a much better society. That's the way these things work. So I think every house have their own beds to make. Let them continue to fight. It is a general African disease. Let everybody continue to cure and find medicines for their own redemption. I do not think that it is me and you's wahala to be worrying about the Panadol that people in Rwanda and Uganda should take. You know, they will have the capacity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Ononuju, sorry to cut in.
They know, yes.
Why we should worry, Dr. Ononuju, some people will disagree with you and say, why we should worry is that if we think we are not affected, one day it will affect us. So don't you think we should be taking steps to prevent such?
Let us fight our own first.
All right. So
we already
finally
know how to fight.
All right. My final question to you is this. How soon do you see Africa overcoming its leadership challenges? Let's say, do you see Africa overcoming leadership challenges in the next 10 or 20 years? Or what's your general outlook to Africa's overcoming leadership challenges?
Africa is already making progress because you now have a brand new young generation that seeks Africa to be run in a different way. And I do commend and also support the drive by the young Africans to have an inclusive African. And I think nobody's going to stop them. So all we can do is encourage the youth across Africa who are now striving and working and also fighting for a better and more inclusive Africa. Everybody can do this in their own chosen geography and countries. And I believe what we're already doing is good enough. We, as I told you earlier, We've suddenly, recently gotten international help from the Russians, and that's why you've seen the youths in Burkina Faso have made great progress in trying to seize their own resources, seize their own countries, and try to lay down protocols that they define.
Dr. Ononuju, in 10 seconds, because I've seen you mention this Russian thing like 2 times. Why do you think Russia has good intention for Africa?
Maybe.
Dr. Ononuju, why do you think Russia has a good intention and you are suggesting that Nigeria and Africa should look towards Russia? Why should they take care of Africa?
Because they do not come with this. Anywhere you see a brand new chance to breed and stay alive, go grab it. You may not stay alive for 100 years, even if it gives you a chance to live freely for 20, for 10, for 50 years.
Interesting.
Grab it.